So we're starting a new series today called Control Freaks. And how many of you, your life is completely under control? You're calling the shots, everything's going your way, you are in charge of it, and completely in control. If I raise your hand, I was going to have you come up and speak. I was going to sit out there because I could really use some help. Just imagine though, this is a safe place. Your mind can wander a little bit here. Think for a minute, what would it be like? What would it feel like to have your life under control? To where you could control things like your body, and you could control things like your career and your time, and extend that out to your kids and your spouse and your coworkers and your boss and your career. And imagine living with that type of control in your life. Well, the sad reality is I think most of us realize that we can't control our lives. And as much as we want to, our lives tend to sometimes run out of control. How many feel at times like life just gets overwhelming and there are too many things that you can't control, too many things happening in your life, and things that sometimes you have no control over? You try to bring some balance, you try to have some means of taking care of things in your life, but too many times there's stuff that pushes in from the outside. Endless needs, challenges, distractions, temptations, things that are always wanting to distract you from what you feel like is really important. Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about this idea of control over the next 4 weeks. And today we're going to start with this idea of the illusion of control. So let's start with some wisdom from an old turtle. Watch this.
Master! I have, it's very bad news.
Shifu. There is just news. There is no good or bad.
Master, your vision was right. Tai Lung has broken out of prison. He's on his way.
That is bad news. If you do not believe that the Dragon Warrior can stop him.
The panda? Master, that panda is not the Dragon Warrior. He wasn't even meant to be here. It was an accident.
There are no accidents.
Yes, I know. You've said that already. Twice.
Well, that was no accident either.
Thrice.
My old friend, the panda will never fulfill his destiny, nor you yours, until you let go of the illusion of control.
Illusion?
Yes. Look at this tree, Shifu. I cannot make it blossom when it suits me, nor make it bear fruit before its time.
But there are things we can control. I can control when the fruit will fall. And I can control where to plant the seed. That is no illusion, Master.
Ah, yes. But no matter what you do, that seed will grow to be a peach tree. You may wish for an apple or an orange, but you will get a peach.
So the illusion of control. The illusion of control is really a theory. It kind of began or was developed in 1975, and it's defined as the tendency for people to overestimate their ability to control events. You get that? Overestimate our ability to control events. For example, it occurs when someone feels a sense of control over outcomes they demonstratively do not influence. Okay? That's the illusion of control. They did a study a few years back at a casino where they tested this. And they found that people rolling dice, if they were rolling for a low number, they would roll the dice softer than if they were rolling for a high number, where they would throw the dice harder. Like somehow the speed at which you control the dice or throw the dice gave you some type of control over it. Whether it's horoscopes or psychics or lucky things or superstitions. I was reading this week about superstitions in sports. And it's become very popular now for sports teams and playoffs all to grow playoff beards. And Michael Jordan, for example, never played a game for the Bulls unless he had his UNC shorts, his college shorts under his Bulls uniform. Every game. And they had to be there, you know. Golfers, the Masters is going this weekend, and all kinds of golfers have little traditions, ways they go up every time, and that they have to be exact. And they don't want to change, like Tiger Woods' red on Sundays and so on. And all of these things are just an illusion of control. And for a lot of us in life, we really think that we can control all the events in our lives. And when we can't control them, what happens? We get frustrated. There's blame to go around. And what happens in life, as you discover, is the further along you go in life, the more things come into your life that you have to control. And sometimes, say early on, you know, through childhood, you're cared for. Everything's kind of there for you. Then you get into high school, especially college. Now you have to pick a major. Then suddenly you're in a relationship, and then life takes off. And it seems like the bigger the risks you have to take, the less control there is. Especially, have anybody number one on the Enneagram scale? You're a perfectionist. If you're a perfectionist, you really struggle with this whole area of control, especially because you want things to be in order. You want them to be right. And when they're not, it just stresses you out. And all of us want order in our lives. And we live in a pretty chaotic world. So what we're going to do is look at the story of Joseph. Before we get into that, though, I want you to think about this. You've got a circle there in your program on your notes, and what I want you to think about in that circle is what are the things in your life that you can control? So we have a certain amount of control over, say, our time, and we have certain control over our body. Wouldn't you agree? And we have control over, things like our money, how we spend it, and maybe our stuff, you know, the stuff we accumulate in our life. And so those are just some things that we can control. But then, let's say tomorrow morning, God forbid, you're driving to work. Somebody's not paying attention. They cross the lane and hit you. Well, suddenly, you're no longer in control of your time. Because how much time is this going to take to deal with this? And you're certainly not in control of your body because you're going to have some pain and aches and possibly further injury. And this is going to cost you something. And your vehicle, your stuff, is all damaged and wrecked, and you didn't have any control over that. So what are you left with? Not a lot. A couple of things that we do have control over is our behavior and our attitude. Now, there's a lot of things that are outside of our control. Things like the weather and things like, government and economy. And we get frustrated about those things too. So there's a lot of this tension, I think, that happens in us. And I want to help you with that. I want to speak to you not only as a pastor, but also a mental health worker, because I see this on the increase, the stress level in people just increasing more and more and more over things that I think maybe 50 years ago we didn't worry about. And we're going to look at the life of Joseph over the next 4 weeks. Because Joseph is one of these unique characters in the Bible where we get the entire span of his life, from Genesis 37 to 50, 23 chapters. So we get his birth all the way to his death, and we get to see somebody's life lived out and the lessons that they learn along the way. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the story of Joseph, we're not going to read 20 some odd chapters today. But let me give you just a summary, and we'll be hitting it in different places over the next few weeks. Joseph was a young man who was favored by his father. He's kind of spoiled. We'll see that in a minute as we start his story. And his brothers are so upset with him that they throw him in a pit and then sell him to slave traders heading to Egypt. In Egypt, he is bought as a slave by Potiphar. He is put over Potiphar's house. He actually advances there, but his wife makes an advance at him. And when he rejects her, she turns the tables and says, he attacked me, so he gets thrown in prison. He languishes in prison probably at least 10 years. During that time, he interprets dreams for these other guys, and he says, hey, when you get out, remember me. They forget him. And then one day the Pharaoh has a dream that no one can interpret. And this guy says, hey, I remember this one guy way back in prison. I think he can interpret dreams. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dream, and immediately the Pharaoh is so impressed, he puts him in charge of everything in the kingdom. He goes from the prison to the palace in one day. And there he begins to guide the people of Egypt, and everything happens well, and his family comes from Israel and settles there. And for the next 400 years, the Israelites are living in Egypt up until the time Moses comes as a deliverer, and it's Moses that's writing all of this. So, we're going to pick up Joseph's story today in Genesis chapter 37. So you can look there, it'll be on the screen. Or if you have your Bibles, you can look there. Verse 2 of chapter 37, these are the generations of Jacob. Jacob is Joseph's father. Now Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report to their father. Now Israel loved, and Israel's also Jacob, interchangeable names there. Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a robe of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all of his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. It's a mild way of saying it. This kid, you already kind of get a picture of him. He's daddy's favorite. Dad's given him this coat. Now, he's the 11th son, by the way. He's not like the firstborn who mostly got all the honor. He's the 11th son. And his dad loves him so much, he gives him this brightly colored coat, which just becomes like a target on his back. Because every time he's around. Plus, you kind of get the idea he's probably somewhat spoiled and kind of a brat and a tattletale. He runs to his dad. Dad, they weren't pasturing the sheep right. And he's ratting his brothers out. This is a kid that nobody likes. Verse 5. Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, hear this dream that I've dreamed. Behold, we are binding sheaves out in the field, and behold, my sheep arose and stood upright, and behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. His brothers said to him, are you indeed going to reign over us? So they hated him even more for his dreams. This is just levels of hatred. Building and building and building. Now, this is a very patriarchal society. And so the father ruled everything, and then the firstborn son after him was the next in line. When you're 11th and you say that everybody's going to be bowing to you, that's just crazy. And he doesn't seem to understand how other people react. He doesn't have the gift of discernment or the ability to read other people. Verse 9, then he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, behold, I've dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, the 11 stars were bowing down to me. But when he told it to his father and his brothers, the father rebuked him and said to him, what is this dream that you've dreamed? Shall I and your mother and brothers indeed bow ourselves to the ground before you? And his brothers were jealous of him. But his father kept these sayings in his heart. Now, one of the things that you pick up in this story is David was a young man that was full of dreams. I mean, obviously. And what we'll find out is those dreams were actually from God. This was God's plan for him. But sometimes, I don't know about you, but have you ever shared your dreams with people and they just kind of downplayed it, kind of put it down, kind of caution you? Well, you got to be careful. You gotta watch that. You don't want to take too many risks, and sometimes that doesn't encourage you. Many of us start out with dreams, but what we have found is how life has turned out is not what we had in mind. And the lives that we're kind of stuck with now are not the lives that we dreamed about when we were younger. For Joseph, that's certainly the case. And as we journey with him over the next 3 weeks, what we're going to find is here's a young man. 13 years, his life was completely out of his control. When you're a slave or a prisoner, that's as low as you can get. You have literally no control over anything outwardly. All he could control was his behavior and his attitude. And we're going to see how that served him. Now, let's get back to our circle for a minute. I said that we all have this circle. This represents our life. But there's something about this circle, and you'll see it there in your notes. There is a door in your life, in the circle of your life. And it's a door that has a knob on the inside, because it can only be opened and closed by you. You control what comes into your life and what goes out. And sometimes we leave the door open and allow anything to come in. I don't know if you saw this week, but it's kind of a viral story about some people in Kenya that were on safari. And while they were on safari, they left a window open in their Jeep. And this happened. Cheetah jumped in the Jeep. And if you look at that guy's face, you can tell that he wishes he would have kept the windows closed. Now, the end of the story is the cheetah stayed in there for about 20 minutes, I think, and then just jumped out and didn't eat anybody or anything. So the story came out okay. The point being, though, is that sometimes we just allow stuff in our lives. We're very casual about what comes in and goes out. We don't realize the impact that it has. You control the door. You determine what you allow in and what you allow out. This is a powerful picture of what we can control in our lives. We get to control many things that we invite in and many things that we have to push out. Now, let me say something else about this. As we get older and we get more responsibilities, it seems like we sometimes have less control because we start filling this circle with so much stuff. I mean, when you're a kid, there's nothing in there. Mom, dad, food, a place to sleep, school, go in color. I mean, pretty easy stuff. But then you start adding things like choosing a major, college pressures, loans, have a child. Think a child fills this circle a little bit? Oh yeah, they push it way out. I think that's a signal to women when, this happens. Yeah, this is just a picture of your life. This baby's going to bulge that circle way out here, It's going to change things. And then you get into a relationship, and suddenly, and a mortgage, and other things, and pretty soon, or later in life, we have a lot of people here at the church that are caring for kids and grandkids and aging, ailing parents. They're in that in-between time. So there's a lot of, every square inch of this is filled. And it's really challenging. Now, let me tell you something about this also. Your circle only has so much capacity. You can only attend to so many things. And here's the key. Whenever something comes in your circle, something else has to go out. You can't keep adding stuff to your life. You can. They just won't get any attention. And it's subtle things. Sometimes it's the littlest things that come into our life that wedge the door open for other things. We take on a volunteer opportunity. We commit to something just because it would seem nice, and all of a sudden we're overwhelmed by it. Or we take on responsibilities that we shouldn't, and so on. You see this play out. Let's picture kind of a microcosm of all this happening. You're driving down the road, and you're getting somewhere, and your focus, you're 10 and 2, or now they say 3 and 9 because of the airbag. You drive it, 9 and 3 on the steering wheel. Did you know that? Oh, see, you learned something else today in church. 10 and 2, you get hit in the face. You punch yourself in the face with the airbag. So 9 and 3, okay? So you're driving at 9 and 3 now, and you're going down the road. You're paying attention to yourself and everybody else, and being a good driver, just thinking about life, and then all of a sudden, someone texts you. And in that split second, you have to decide, okay, am I going to take this text message in to my life, into my focus right now? Because a lot of my focus, a lot of my attention, hopefully, is on driving. And then this text message comes in, and you have to decide if you're going to open the door to it or not. Now, I doubt that you stop and think at that moment, do I really enjoy living? Would I rather not kill other people? I mean, I don't think those things go through your mind at that moment. You just see it as, a simple text message. So you think, I can respond. I can do this. I know it's not the best, but I live way above that. I have the illusion of control. So you pick up the phone, you look at it, and what happens? Immediately, it comes into your life. Yes. 60 to 70% of your eyesight is now on your phone instead of on the road. 70 to 80% of your thinking is no longer about what you should be thinking about, what you should be focused on. Now it's on the text message. See? And the challenge is that many times we live our life this way. We go from having this sense of trying to control everything to feeling like we have no control, so we just allow anything in our lives. And this brings us to God. Where's God's place in this circle? Where's our spirituality in this circle? Is it up here in the corner on Sundays? And maybe, a little bit during the week? Let me show you what God's intention is regards to your circle. That's God's intention. Paul uses the phrase a lot, to be in Christ. Acts says, in Him we live and move and have our being. Our entire existence is in God. That means that we give up control of this door and we give this to God. That we have Him as the filter in our life. That we determine what gets in and what goes out by what will honor God. See, the Bible says that when we came into a relationship with Christ, He became ruler and Lord over our lives. That's what it means to be a Christian. Not that you go to church, not that you prayed a prayer, not that you were born into a Christian family, but this is about a real relationship with a living God. A God who has a whole lot to say about your life because He loves you and He's given you dreams. And if you haven't discovered those yet, He wants to reveal them to you. He may just need you to make some space and rearrange some things in your life so that in return, He can begin to rule and lead it and guide you into the place of fulfillment. But our challenge is that as long as we allow these things to stay in our lives that are detrimental and that consume us, we don't have any space to live in this kind of relationship with God. Like I said, over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about how to gain control. What's it like to live with inside of a circle where God is ruling? What's it like to be in such a relationship with Him that He guides us? He controls things. That I can let go and I can let Him filter things coming in and out of my life. See, as you go through life, there's always going to be shiny things out here to distract you. There's always a world that we live in that has a completely different value system than what Christianity involves. Out here, the goal is get all you can all you get, and sit on the can. That's kind of the whole perspective. The Christian life is receive, give, receive, give, receive, give. And as everything passes through, there's plenty for you. That's God's intention. It's different from what's out here. And if our sight is set on the shiny things, if our sight is set on the stuff that we think is better for us than what God thinks, we will leave this door open to things and we will lose control of our lives. And sometimes to the point where stress will so overwhelm you, pressure will so overwhelm you, that your life is completely out of control. And then it's pull back from everything, or medication, or head to divorce court, or quit the job, or always chasing something better, never finding that place of real contentment. So as we close today, I want to challenge you with this. At the bottom of your notes there's an opportunity for you to take a little inventory in your circle today. And I've cut this message pretty brief because I want us to have a few minutes to actually process this today. So, on your notes, what's inside your life that you want to be there? So in one of those circles or off to the side, put some things in there that are priority. What's really important in your circle? And there are pens there in front of you. What's in your circle that's important to you? Now, another step would be, what really takes up your time. Because our priorities versus our real life sometimes are completely different. To get things back in order so that the things that are most important in our lives are the most important things that get the most attention, we've got to do number 2. We've got to take some things out of our life. We've got to send some things out of our life that just shouldn't be there. Maybe it's some relationships. Maybe it's a job that you're doing, but it's just taking so much of your life, there's nothing left. And I know it's scary, and I know it's a risk. But if God's in it, and you're doing it to honor Him, then I'd say pray about that. Maybe making less money, but being more fulfilled will give you a better life. I believe it will. And then finally, what's outside your life, you need to allow in. When you evaluate how you spend your money, when you evaluate how you spend your time, those things that you do have some control over, the relationships that you invest in, are these healthy? Are they God-honoring things? This is what you have to ask yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to take just a few minutes here, and we'll, Clayton, why don't you come on up, and team, come on up. We're going to play some music and do some song worship, but I just want you to take a minute before we even start to move to do communion or anything else. I just want us to take about 5 minutes here and let you kind of process this. Because the most important thing could happen today is not that you hear something from me, but that you hear something from God. You say, what's it like to hear from God? Just that impression inside, thoughts that come to your mind, where you know it's from your heart. It's not from even your head. It's something deeper than that. That impression that comes from the heart of God. So, Father, this morning, we just take a pause here. We just want to slow down and take a minute to think and to honor you. God, we know that you deserve the first place in our lives. But at times we get so distracted. There's so many things that tempt us and keep us from you. And we're such humans. We want control of our lives. We always think that we know what's best for ourselves. But God, I pray that we would rise up in faith, take that risk of faith and trust you. To say, God, I know that you can guide my life. I know that your way is better. So right now, how's that circle looking? What's in there? What needs to go out? What needs to come in? You just take a moment and listen. Sometimes it'll come as a picture in your mind's eye. Sometimes it'll just be that hunch. But write those things down. And then as you do, pray that God's grace will help you to embrace and to release those things that you need to. Father, bless your people as they connect with you right now. In Jesus' name.